Okay, this is going to be a pretty ambitious video. We are going to tackle the touch sensor as well as a couple of other things that will help you understand your way around the programs, understand your robot a little bit better. One of those is how to display things onto your EV3 screen. Another is the debugger windows. So let's just get started. Okay, so first of all, up where it says robot, click on it, and we want to see debugger windows. This will be grayed out unless you have already downloaded a program. So you must download your program to the robot first in order for this to pop up. Once it does, however, you should be able to select two things. One, we're going to be working with a touch sensor today, so you're going to click on sensors. And if you notice when I do that, this all displayed down here, and it is going to show you as the robot is working in the virtual worlds what kind of readings it is getting. Notice that the first choice is the touch sensor. That's one we're going to be looking at today. And its normal value when nothing's happening to it is 0. That means that the button that is the touch sensor is not pushed in. Nothing's happening to it. It's 0. So that was robot, debugger windows, and then click on sensors, and you should see these values down here. Again, the debugger windows won't even be available to you unless you've already hit compile and download, and actually download a program so that your virtual world should be open. We're going to work with another debugger window that's kind of important. We might as well get started on it early. It's called the EV3 remote screen. If you had a physical EV3 robot, you would be able to look at the screen and see stuff. But the virtual worlds has this cool option called the EV3 remote screen, and you can see what the EV3 would typically show you. So I'm going to click on that. And notice this is what pops up. This is like a picture of your actual EV3. This is the screen that you can display things on, and we're going to talk a little bit about how and why you might want to do that. Okay, so we have this program. Let's talk about what we're actually trying to do. And we're doing this challenge called Forward Until Touch. And it says, use this practice table to follow along with the Forward Until Touch programming lesson. I'll just start it. We are basically supposed to go out, hit this object, and use our touch sensor to display or to control when we stop. Okay. So that's what it's supposed to do. Let's look at the program that we're using. Task main is always there. I added something in here that's pretty simple. While is a loop. Anything, whenever you use the while loop, you also need to use these curly brackets, and open curly brackets work just like mathematics. They need a closed curly bracket to on the other end to close them up. The best way to do it is to start at the beginning. See, my first curly bracket is here. That curly bracket is going to correspond with the last curly bracket at the end, which means that this next to last one is going to be the next to the first one or the second one. And that leaves these two. This curly bracket corresponds to that one. You could have done it the other way around by starting at the middle and seeing that this one corresponds, that's the next one. So then if I went back to the curly bracket before it to this one, that would mean that it would run up against that one, and then this last one would have to be corresponding to the first one. Okay, anyway, while is a loop. It means it's going to do whatever is inside its curly brackets again and again and again while its condition is true. What is its condition? Whatever you put in the parentheses. While is a loop. It does things again and again and again as long as the condition, which is whatever is inside the parentheses, is true. I put inside these parentheses while 1 equals 1. By the way, it's a double equal sign. We'll talk later about when to use a single equal sign. But 1 is always equal to 1, which means that whatever is inside the curly brackets that correspond to this particular while loop, which is the first curly bracket that comes after it, and then wherever its corresponding ending or closing bracket is. Whatever is inside those brackets, it's going to do as long as the condition is true. In this case, 1 equals 1 will always be true, so it's going to do this forever and just keeps looping again and again and again. 1 equals 1 is called an infinite loop. So let's talk about what's going to happen forever. First, display text line is something, it's a command that allows you to see what the robot sees, and it will display, in this case, the first thing tells you the line. There are, I think, 8 lines on the remote screen or on your EV3 screen, and I'm going to put the first thing on line 1. And you then, after you tell it what line, you're going to put quotation marks, and whatever you put inside quotation marks is going to show up on the screen. And you can see that in this case it says this helps you see what the robot sees, and that's because in my quotation marks I said this helps you see what the robot sees. Now we have another loop. While is going to do whatever's inside its curly brackets. Where's the curly bracket after this while loop? Right here. Where's the corresponding closed bracket? There. So it's going to do everything that's inside of those brackets as long as the condition is true. In this case, the condition is not 1 equals 1. The condition is this weird thing here. Get touch value, touch sensor equals 0. Let's put this in more easily understood language. This is saying while the touch sensor equals 0, which means as long as it hasn't been hit, do this. While is a loop. It does things again and again and again, whatever's inside its corresponding curly brackets, as long as the condition is true. In this case, the condition is as long as the touch sensor equals 0. So, what does this mean? Well, as long as the touch sensor hasn't been hit, do this. And that says display the text line, which is going to print something on our screen over here. It's going to print it on line 2. In this case, what did I put inside the quotation marks? We're throwing a lot at you. Up here we put words inside the quotation marks. But here I said %D. %D often calls a variable. And so in this case, I said %D is in the parentheses or inside the quotation marks, and I told it afterwards what we wanted it to look for, and it's the value of the touch sensor. So this is going to print on line 2 whatever the value of the touch sensor is, and it can either be 0 or 1. So then we're going to go forward. Once this condition is no longer true, once it is no longer a 0, in other words, once the touch sensor has been hit, then we're not going to be inside these brackets anymore, and the program will jump to whatever is next. And whatever is next is go backwards for 2 seconds. So let's look at the whole program again. While 1 equals 1, do whatever is inside the parentheses forever, or the curly brackets. That's from here to here. Do all of this again and again and again forever. Then it's going to jump and look at, well, what am I supposed to do? First, print this helps you see what the robot sees, and that should show up on the screen. Then, while the touch sensor hasn't been pushed in, do this, which is essentially go forward. And at the same time, print what the value of the touch sensor is. And since it hasn't hit anything yet, that should be 0 on line 2. So remember, the %D says, don't print a word, print whatever the value of this is. In this case, I call it the touch sensor. Then go backwards. So let's check out this program. We're going to compile and download. And we can see a couple of things. Here's our robot. It's going to go out here, and we can see down at the bottom that our touch sensor is 0. The value of the touch sensor is 0. And let's go ahead and hit go. This helps you say, let me pause. As of now, the robot hasn't hit, the touch sensor hasn't hit the box. So the value here is 0, and we see 0 up here. Let's go a little further. Watch down here. Every time it hits, 1. Every time it hits, 1. So the value of a touch sensor can either be 0 or 1. When it's not being pushed in, it's 0. When it gets hit, it's 1. Let's look at this one more time. When the robot goes forward, we're going to see this thing turn to 1 at the moment the robot impacts the box. Watch. 1. It's just there for a split second. 1. Okay. So that's it. I've got the touch sensor programming over here. We've got the while loop, and we've got the debugger screen showing us, remember, debugger windows. We want the sensors so we can see what the values of the sensors are. We want the EV3 remote screen. EV3 remote screen so we can see what's going on inside the robot. And then finally, don't forget that you won't even see the debugger windows. You won't be able to select it unless you've already compiled and downloaded your program. Good luck.